It's real. It's back. It's game week. It's episode 249, Alamo Audible podcast. So good to have you back on game week. Adrian, welcome. For those that are tuning in for the first time, and for probably a lot of people for the first time in a long time, now that the season's really here, they check back on their old friends at Alamo Audible. This is your co-host, Jared Galmas, joined as always by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. And we're here to preview the first week of the season against Kennesaw State.
Wow, baby. Week 1, 2024 football season, the 14th season of UTSA Roadrunners football ever. And we are here with a game day preview, kicking off the season in the Alamo Dome at home. Nothing better. Nothing beats it. I feel all the juices flowing, moving everything around on the schedule so I can get out and on the road as early as possible on Friday. Enjoy the sights, sounds, and smells of San Antonio. And then we will be in the lots, baby, live, college game day style at the SB at the Alumni Association tailgate. Get out there early. We will be recording live, Alamo Audible live at 11:45, quarter till noon. Yes, the perfect way to get your tailgate started, baby.
Yeah, it's going to be a great event. I hear we're opening up for a live band, so we've got to find a way to bring some energy to match that. We'll see what we can do. Adrian and I are pretty good riffing and trying to get a crowd going, but a lot of pressure on our shoulders. We'll see. We'll see if we deliver. But yeah, come on out to the SB. Going. Yeah, tickets are real cheap. If you're a lifetime member, it's like $5 or $10, right? Something like that. Anyone's welcome, even if you're not an Alumni Association member. So you come out, say hi to Adrian and I, hear a little bit about our thoughts of the game. There's always some late breaking news on a Friday, right, that we don't have a chance to get onto the podcast that we'll hit you guys with that Saturday morning. And then we'll begin the pregame festivities.
Oh, baby. That's right. Yes, indeed. So full swing this Saturday, game 1, week 1, Alamo Dome. We're getting started with a live pregame show and then tailgate all the way up until kickoff. And then we will see the new era, Jared, the new era of UTSA Roadrunners football. Chapter 2, I guess you could say, of Jeff Traylor's tutelage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, Adrian, I was thinking, too, it'd probably be good to give some kind of programming reminders to the listeners right off the bat, because I do think we're going to have a lot of people tune in that haven't listened to the podcast in a while, with it finally being game week. For those that don't know, are finally, after many years of people asking for it, our podcasts are now now available in video form on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. So if I had $1 for every time someone asked for that, we could have done this 5 years ago. So, if you care about video, please go check us out on there. We put a lot of work in to getting a high quality product over to you guys over there. So appreciate y'all checking us out on there. And of course, giving a like, subscribe, all that good stuff that kind of helps us get boosted by the algorithm as we kind of build up our efforts there. Also, we're still on the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast feed. So if you want to subscribe to all the great podcasts that cover state of Texas football programs, I'll definitely recommend you continue to do so, just like I do myself. We are also back on our main feed now as well, right? So if you don't care to check out the other podcast networks, shame on you. But we do have that individual feed now as well. So that's another option for you guys. And of course, if you subscribe to Patreon, you get everything in a single feed, which is really convenient.
Yes, absolutely. And we have the Patreon app with all of our bonus content, exclusive content, and freely available content there. You can also go to alamoaudible.com and check out pretty much everything podcast related, blog related, fan shop, all there on alamoaudible.com. But yeah, we're on your favorite podcast platform. We're on YouTube, wherever you're looking for us, you can find us. And we hope that you do come looking for us, because we will have your UTSA coverage all season long, all year long, as always, baby.
Speaking of UTSA coverage, we're primarily football, we're primarily athletics, but we cover it all. And nothing that happens on the field on Saturday is going to be as big as what happened in the state legislature. Or I guess I shouldn't say state legislature, at the Board of Regents meeting last week. The massive news that we've all been waiting forever for. For me, it's been 13 years, right, that I've had this dream. finally UTSA and UT Health San Antonio fusing, merging into just UTSA. UTSA is just, absorbing the medical program. What a game changer for UTSA. What a game changer for San Antonio, for the UT system, for the state of Texas, man. What an absolute coup for UTSA. It wasn't that long ago where getting to tier 1 felt impossible, like it was never going to happen. And now UTSA is like just banging on the doorsteps of becoming an AAU institution, right? The third largest research institution in the state of Texas now, $1 billion endowment. I mean, the entire history and trajectory of this university just got rewritten with the stroke of a pen last week. And I could not be more proud, more excited.
It is insane, Jared. I think just in our time doing this podcast, this topic, this subject has come up maybe 2 to 3 times. And it's been something that's floated around, something that's been talked about and never quite entertained to the degree that we wanted it to be in the past. Yeah. And that's for various reasons. But, the powers that be just didn't see it as a beneficial alignment through the years past. But, UTSA has grown tremendously. And as the university has gotten bigger and better, the inevitable is finally here. UT Health San Antonio now merging into one unified institution. This will be in 2025.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast it's happening.
Our boy, UTSA President Taylor Amy, was unanimously voted as a president of the entire system. So just tremendous work to President Taylor Amy, to the UT Board of Regents for getting down and getting this done. Because it like we said, it's been tried to be done in the past unsuccessfully. But it's now here, and it's just an unbelievable feat. UT Health San Antonio, largest academic health research institution in South Texas, ranks in the top 3% globally for NIH funding. UTSA, now absorbing UT Health San Antonio, essentially our medical school, will be probably the single greatest benefactor of anything that's ever happened at UTSA.
Oh yeah, hands down. Hands down.
$1 billion endowment is going to reap unbelievable dividends, not just for UTSA's health school and health institution, but UTSA as an entire university, as a program. Athletically, I'm sure there'll be some trickle down effect. You're going to have more players, more money makers around the university.
Whoa. Right off the bat, they're going to get athletic fees from an extra 4,000 students in 2025. That's nothing to scoff at. That's almost $1 million, I think.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if students are voting no to student fee increases whenever you
increase the students. And this is going to open more growth opportunities too. Because think about how much UTSA's pre-med program is going to grow now that you have a direct pipeline to stay within the same university and go get your doctorate, right?
That's right. Now the interest there completely skyrockets. You're adding a massive amount of students to your student population. You are going to compete at the highest tier of universities in the country, not just the state.
In the world.
UTSA now a world-class university seemingly overnight. And that kind of sounds like this cliche or metaphor thing to say, okay, we get it. You don't have to be so ridiculous with your elaboration, but it's not. It's actually very much a legitimate claim. UTSA skyrockets itself to the highest echelon of universities in the world with this single move.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's nothing that we can say that would be hyperbolic here. I mean, it's just a new dawn for UTSA, man. I mean, the school is going to be a national leader in developing Hispanic doctors, dentists, surgeons, physicists. They're going to become a world leader in the intersection between AI and medicine, data science and healthcare. Yeah. UTSA has so many unique opportunities to do research that no other institution is doing. It really gets me pumped up, man. And I already told Adrian before we start recording, hey, I need you to keep me in check here because I can spend 30 minutes on this. We'll definitely do a full bonus episode on Patreon someday of this.
For sure.
But we would be remiss to at least not briefly talk about it on this episode.
UTSA leading pillars in massive industries right now, with already the strides that they've made in the world of cybersecurity, technology, and the leaps and bounds in that. And now you add the UT Health San Antonio system. You've now got two enormous pillars of academics that your institution stands on right now. World leading. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm pumped to see how this develops. It's just going to be one short year, right, until this merger goes through. And, I'm sure there's going to be some roadblocks. There's probably going to be some negative stories. I'm sure there's going to be some downsides, of course, that, the administration will have to work through and all of that. But, in the grand scheme of things, it's just a complete breakthrough, right? So just really excited to continue to monitor that over the next year. And of course, we'll keep our eyes and our ears on that and keep you guys in the loop. Definitely do that bonus episode in the future. But speaking of bonus episodes, we're going to space out the Patreon shout outs a little bit in this episode. And we want to say thanks to our newest member on Patreon, Grace, who joined the Insider tier. We had 3 folks upgrade their subscription tiers to unlock this year's merch drop. Very smart move from these 3 gentlemen. Shout out to Jonathan Jimenez, Daniel Herrera, and Cheesehead Duke for all jumping up to the booster tier from the Insider tier and getting that sweet Patreon gift that Adrian is sending out as we speak.
That's right. That is right. Be on the lookout in your mailbox. Probably sometime next week, I would imagine. Those gifts are going to start rolling in, baby. So
that's one of my favorite parts of football season is like when people start posting their Patreon gifts that they got. Like, I don't know, I feel like a special physical connection to all the listeners when it happens.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible, man.
One other thing on Patreon too is we're going to give our depth chart thoughts here in a little bit. But we're going to do a full preview of the offensive line and the tight ends on our bonus episode this week. Those are the 2 position groups that we have not already done a preview for. So you can go to our website. If you go on the blog football dropdown, we have a link to the 2024 season preview. We'll have all of our stuff on there, right? So if you're kind of cramming last minute to get ready for game week and for the season, we've got you covered there. Full position previews, at least 30 minutes on every position. So go check that out. And I'm excited to talk about the big uglies, Adrian. It's always where we shine,
Yeah, dude. Yeah, yes, indeed. And the offensive line, Jared loves to get down and geek out on anything happening in the trenches at all times. But one of those very critical positions here for UTSA and should be very senior laden and leading us into what should be a very successful campaign. Having new offensive captains at the helm in the backfield at our new quarterback position. Running game should be fierce. It's all going to come down to the offensive line, right? And so, yeah, that'll be our last position preview to go through. They're all available. They're all there. Dude, Jared, man, there's so much to break down because we've done all of our position previews and we say on our position previews, especially in a year like this where so much turnover is happening. Yeah, there's a lot of potential here and there's a lot of talent here. We're really excited about what it looks like on paper, but there's just no telling how these guys are actually going to gel until we see the product on the field. We finally get to see them this Saturday. And in fact, we got our very first glimpse of how the hierarchy is starting to establish itself with UTSA's week 1 depth chart dropping this week. And dare I say, a couple of eyebrow raises, a couple of surprises, and
a few.
Again, in a year like this,
you're
not sure what you're gonna see coming. And there was a few. Yeah, it wasn't crazy, right? It didn't make you like there were no jaw drops, I don't think, on the depth chart anywhere. But definitely some eyebrow raises. Say, "Oh, I didn't see that coming," or "Oh, interesting. How's this going to work out?"
Yeah, I think if you're in the Patreon community chat, you would have caught wind of a few things. We had some pretty good leads in there. Shout out to everyone who posted their depth chart predictions and were spot on. I can't remember who it was, but someone called Chad Otutu being in the 2 deep. That was a bold call that ended up being correct. But yeah, I mean, I thought
Amazing.
the depth chart was solid. It's kind of funny, like seeing people on social media like reading like super super deep in the depth chart, right? Of like, oh, like is the or alphabetical, or is it really the best player that's up top, or all these like secret meanings and stuff. Like, oh, they're not going to show the true starter because they want to save it until conference play and like all this stuff. It kind of amuses me, but it's my biggest takeaway, just like seeing it all typed out. Like, we've done depth chart predictions. Javi's done a great running one over on his side, right? So like we knew that the depth was going to be really, really good this year. But seeing it typed up in an official UTSA depth chart that's like on the website, I was like, man, this roster is so stacked. And like, sure, there's positions where you can have some question marks. You can worry about the depth a little bit. But overall, top to bottom for your 85 scholarship players, man, it's like there are very, very, very few empty scholarship slots here that don't have the opportunity to produce.
A lot of talent. A lot of talent here, man. And yeah, looking at the depth chart, looks like a group of guys that can run with the best of them in the AAC, if not be the best of them. There's so much here, Jared. But overall, all in all, whenever I look at it, my first impression is it's stacked and it's very senior laden. Despite graduating so many upperclassmen and losing so many upperclassmen, all the starting slots are filled with seniors and juniors, and the two deep all the way down is all upperclassmen. A lot of experience here on this depth chart.
I think, starting with maybe a little bit last year, but starting with this depth chart and moving forward, I think you really see the benefits of Jeff Traylor's approach where he's willing to play a ton of guys and rotate all the time. Because a guy like Osiris Simon, Ronald Triplett, and a lot of programs, they wouldn't really be in the rotation all that much because there were better players in front of them that were putting up stats and all that. But Traylor has continued to rotate those guys in consistently. He's found roles for them. He's found ways to get them on the field. So now, like, you lose Nick Booker Brown, right? He's out. You had a couple players graduate on the defensive line. Johnny Bowens goes down with an injury. And then you're looking at these guys, I'm like, man, these guys are legit, right? Like, these guys would be a starter any other year, right? Based off their experience and the production they brought to the table already. So a cool way to see like how that strategy for Jeff Traylor pays off in the long term. Because even in a position where you lose some guys both expectedly and unexpectedly, you still are left in a position where you've got really solid 2 deep, 3 deep, because you have so many guys that have gotten that experience already at the Division I level.
That's right. That's right.
I'll say the one position group that it looks a little weird to me on the depth chart is the wide receivers. Like, I've had this feeling with UTSA receiver depth chart in the past too, but like you just look at the guys and like it doesn't seem like a logical grouping at each position, right? Like if you look at the slot receivers, you got Chris Carpenter, David Amador as like the or starter. And that makes total sense. Really similar players, both shifty guys, speedy. Guys that can, catch a track route and turn it into a touchdown. But then you've got Jace Wilson with them, who's like more of a possession type receiver, 6'4", 210. Definitely not a burner, right? And, you just a couple of examples like that for the wide receivers that, I don't know, has me like wondering, are they just trying to get like the best guys, the most snaps, and just put them wherever they fit in? I don't know. It's interesting to me.
It does seem like there's a little bit of trial by fire there, right? Like they're not maybe entirely sure who that right guy is at the slot. And maybe it's a little bit of a tryout, a little bit of in-game tryout that has to happen here through the month of September. I was surprised to see the or by David Amador's name. I thought he was still dealing with a little bit of a bugging hamstring issue. I didn't expect him to be really solidified on a depth chart, even with an or next to his name, at least until probably week 3 or 4. So I guess that's a good sign. I guess he's healthier than what we initially anticipated. And, maybe that hamstring issue wasn't very major in the first place. So, yeah, I think wide receiver or the slot receivers is one that's going to have to play out. I was very excited to see DJ Allen at the Z position in the second slot. So second string Z receiver, DJ Allen. He's going to be a stud right behind Devin McEwen. And then in the X position, the second guy is JJ Sparkman, Jared. So these are two guys I think we both had listed as our X factor in the wide receiver position preview. X factor being if this guy breaks out and is really good, then this position group is going to be very, very good. Because I think we're both extremely confident in Devin McEwen and Willie McCoy's ability to solidify themselves and just be go-tos at the position. But if those twos can really be studs, well, then wide receivers are going to be just fine. But yeah, the slot position, question marks. Yeah, I think that's fair, Jared.
I don't want to overanalyze a piece of paper because, like, we've seen transfers come in and be the starter in the depth chart and just not really do a whole lot. I think like Brennan Dingle, he like transferred in from UMass. He got a single-digit number, had a couple plays, but transferred out after 1 year, right? So,
yeah,
don't want to get too carried away. But one of my first takeaways from looking at the depth chart is it looks like UTSA really knocked it out of the park with their transfer class on offense, right? You got Kamar Missouri, he's the Rutgers transfer. You got CJ James, New Mexico transfer, Jalen Garth, the Houston transfer, DJ Allen, TCU, JJ Sparkman, Texas Tech. All of these guys all made the depth chart, right? They're in the two deep at worst, right? So, of course, we want to see them produce and play to potential, right? But those guys are not bust if they're there.
All those first names that you listed on the line, those are all starters. Kamar Missouri, starting left tackle. CJ James, starting center. And Jalen Garth starting right tackle. So, yeah. These are transfers that came and immediately jumped into starting spots and did it above guys that have been on the roster playing in for their snaps for a couple of years already. A lot of talent coming in and ability to adapt quickly, to learn the playbook quickly, to make their impression quickly, all the just through fall camp, being able to solidify themselves. It's extremely impressive stuff.
There were a few surprises in the defensive backfield. We saw Elijah Newell pop in there, very lightly recruited kid out of Arkansas. We've talked about him on the podcast before as a guy to keep an eye on, right? Super athletic. What was he, like one of those three sport kids that just absolutely dominated at like a really low level play? Didn't get scouted by a lot of programs. And he's the first freshman. I did not fact check myself on this, but I'm pretty sure that he's the first freshman defensive back to make the two deep since Rashad Wisdom.
Wow.
And really? Rashad's playing in the NFL right now, right? So that's been, 5 years?
Yeah. Would you argue whenever Rashad came in as a freshman, maybe, similar, maybe not quite as much competition at the position than what Elijah's walked into?
I really don't recall. It was bleak. I feel like that's the same thing to say.
Yeah, I think it was a kind of a wide open position. But Elijah Newell playing in and getting himself into the depth chart. What's some guys that have been here for a little bit?
Yeah. The other guy too, a guy that I was pretty high on, right, when I broke down his film and did the recruiting class breakdown was Tyan Milton, right? Another guy that didn't get recruited a whole lot, not a high 3-star guy by any means, but his ability to burst downfield just really jumped off film to me, right? Just looked like a guy who could attack the football. So I was kind of curious that we hadn't really heard anything about him at all through all the fall camp. I had a feeling he was maybe like a secret weapon, right? And sure enough, we see him on the depth chart, right? So just goes to show that the names you hear in the media availability and stuff like that is not always the guys that are going to be there on the depth chart, right? And we heard a lot of praise for Zay Frazier. He got a single digit. He's not listed as a starter, right? So some interesting moves there, but of course it's still early and stuff will shuffle around, especially after this week.
Very true. Very true. How about all 4 tight ends being listed on the depth chart? No oars next to him, just listing all 4 tight ends. Does this give you confidence in seeing those 2 tight end sets?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see a lot of those 12 personnel sets. We've heard a lot of hype about Patrick Obermeyer. He's the 4th tight end listed there. But I think you could probably have 2 different tight end positions on the depth chart if you wanted to, like the more traditional blocking type of tight end, and that kind of H-back, stretch the field out, So I think we'll definitely see a lot of those guys all on the field together. I'm excited about that. I think it's a good fit for UTSA. We're still waiting for those receivers to emerge, right? Of who's going to be the next person to take the mantle, in that room. So you've got tight ends that are already showing they can make plays. Why not get them involved? And they're very athletic. They're going to be tough mismatches for a lot of teams. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Otutu on the defense coming in that nose tackle position, second string, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
Guy's a true freshman. And I think that speaks to the talent that UTSA is now getting over fresh out of high school, not just through the transfer portal.
Not only is Chad Otutu second string, but they also seemingly moved, because Christian Clayton can play both nose tackle and defensive tackle, and they have him listed on the depth chart as defensive tackle. So that tells me they're comfortable enough with Otutu that like they're willing to have Clayton out at defensive tackle. That is a huge endorsement for me, right? So I'm really excited about that. You know, he looks like a beast. For those that don't remember, he was like a last minute sign a day flip for UNLV, right? So huge recruiting win for UTSA. Like that's why I love recruiting, man. Like that like single day that you flip that receiver and then he ends up being on the 2 deep and potentially going to be a difference maker for UTSA. It's super exciting.
Well, that's an incredible Easter egg to find there, Jared. And well, how about the maybe the biggest not so loud news? But there was a guy that we thought wasn't even a part of this football program anymore, and Martavius French, who did in fact come out on the depth chart with his single-digit number gone. Yes, Martavius French is still a UTSA football linebacker, baby. And our linebacker preview, we had a whole little segment about how poor of a loss, how bad of a loss it was going to be not having Martavius French. Well, you can go ahead and erase that entire part of the podcast out because he's here. And this makes a talented linebacker room, a linebacker room that we were pretty high on, all that much more robust, baby, with Martavius French in the mix.
Yeah, and we still don't know what happened with that situation. It sounded super serious when they sent the press release out. Hopefully they'll give some clarity to the situation, right? I want to feel reassured that UTSA did all the right things here, which I'm sure that they did. But it's a very unique situation, I guess, to put a press release out and suspend a guy. And then he's back in a single digit. What was it, 2 weeks later?
Week one. Yeah.
But yeah, trusting that he didn't do anything wrong, right? There was some misunderstanding or, false allegation or whatever. Super fortunate for that to happen in the preseason, right? Where, he's maybe missing some snaps in fall camp that he probably doesn't need a whole lot of versus like he's sitting out, a 3-game stretch in the middle conference play, right? So that's huge. But I think also it gave an opportunity for those other linebacker transfers to get some quality snaps in with the 1s and 2s, like Brevin Randall, Blackshire, right? So I think it all works out pretty well. Hopefully French is in solid shape conditioning wise. And great to hear Traylor confirm that he's good to go for this week. And man, that position unit is salty. They've come a long way.
Indeed. Yeah, defensive backs as a whole is going to be a very, very nasty position here.
Yeah, I think it was Elliot Davison today in his interview. He said that the depth at cornerback is just as good as at running back. And I'm sure that's a bit of an exaggeration, right? Because the running backs are pretty ridiculous. But to even make that comparison is super encouraging. Because if you think back to like all of our offseason content, we were talking like they're losing all the cornerbacks. They don't have anyone proven a cornerback. That was a big focus for the defense. And now it sounds like it's going to be one of the strengths of the defense. So incredible collection of talent there. I think that Zach Morris transfer was huge. I think they had a good find with Ty and Milton. So I'm really excited to see. We're not going to see a whole lot of them this week against Kennesaw State and option team. But we're going to see a lot of them against Texas State. So I'm excited to see them flash their ability and see what they can bring to the table.
Any other surprises or items of note on the depth chart, Jared?
Let's see. No, I think we mostly covered it.
I think so too.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't talked about quarterbacks. Like, personally, I'm not going to buy into the manufactured quarterback drama. I mean, McCown's the guy. I think everyone like really knows it deep down.
Yeah, it's definitely an alphabetical listing there whenever we have an or slot. But McCown will be the starting quarterback for UTSA in 2024. Don't get it twisted.
One small thing, man. Look at UTSA starting guards. 6'4", 345, 6'4", 345. A lot of beef.
A ton of it, man. A ton of
Like,
it. Yeah,
Gardner was
both,
pretty heavy last year, but Tatafu wasn't. I'm a little worried about him playing at 345. We'll see how that holds up throughout the season.
both starting tackles are also listed at 6'6".
Yeah, that's a real
yeah.
P4 size offensive line right there.
Yes, sir. Grown men, absolutely, dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, cool. And, before we get into our Kennesaw State preview, I do want to take a quick minute to recognize our Board of Trustees subscribers on Patreon. You guys got a sweet gift heading your way really soon. If you're watching on YouTube, you zoom in. I actually have it laying on the floor over there. I forgot to move that box. So
wow.
If you're listening on audio, that's a little Easter egg to go check out the video and to give a like on the video. But yeah, shout out to our Board of Trustees members, DigiTeek, John Otwell. Those guys have been rocking with us since day one. I don't know how many seasons that they've been on the Board of Trustees, but man, shout out to the day ones, man. Love you guys. Shout out to Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Mimi Pearl, Brandon Grail and the Grail Realty Group, Andy Elzada for Efficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and Secret LLC, Ryan Squares, Waterman Construction, Javon Townsend, who we have just found out moved from being the vice president to the president of the DFW chapter at the UTSA Alumni Association. So shout out to Javon, shout out to all of the Metroplex Roadrunners. We see you guys. And also thank you to UTSA Annual Giving, Artisan Vapor and CBD, and Wayne Gonzalez and the Runners Rising Project, who currently has their tailgate challenge going on. So if you want to support your favorite tailgate, support UTSA student athletes, go check out their social media and make a donation to support UTSA and your favorite athlete. And the winner gets a sweet prize and some recognition from some UTSA athletes at the tailgate.
Oof.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. We'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back to preview the Kennesaw State Owls. All right, Adrian, it's the first game preview of the 2024 season. Hopefully we do 14 of these. 15?
Oh, baby. Yes,
indeed. We'll 15? See. Setting those expectations, man, right off the bat.
Oh, man, it's totally right.
Man, first off, huge shout out. Congrats. Welcome to Kennesaw State. Welcome to Big Boy FBS football. Yes. Georgia is a football-rich state. There's plenty of talent, plenty of passion to go around to support another FBS program, especially in that Atlanta metro area. So I'm thrilled to see Kennesaw State jump up. I've been playing against them a lot in the College Football 25 video game. So it's cool to see. It's a program that's mirrored UTSA a lot of ways in their rapid ascent. The first thing I want to talk about is Kennesaw State calls themselves the best startup football program in NCAA history. And that is in their media guide. It's on their social media bio. And we'll see if UTSA has something to say about that, right?
Yeah, it just absolutely reeks of self-entitlement. And you've got to be freaking kidding me. What does their stadium hold? 10,000 people? I'm sorry.
It's tiny.
Did y'all have a record-breaking attendance in y'all's inaugural football game in 2015? No, I don't think so. No, UTSA did that. Look, very, very happy for Kennesaw State moving into Conference USA. Very impressive to go 71-30 in just 9 years of playing collegiate football, the 700 winning percentage. But come on, we all know who the best startup football program in college football history is. And it's not the Owls.
It's a bold statement. It's a bold statement for sure. But hey, they got a shot to come in the Alamo Dome and pull the upset and, take that title rightfully. And that's what's great about college football, right? Everyone should have the chance to prove their worth and to back up their words, right? So yeah, we're excited about it. And for those that don't know, yeah, like we said, Kennesaw State, they're in the Atlanta metro area. I think they're north of the city proper, but really close. I mean, it'd essentially be New Braunfels, I think, having a Division I program. And they've been working their way up the FCS ranks. just like UTSA, they went straight to Division I. They didn't do Division II or anything like that. Spent several years as an independent. I think they were in the ASUN. They were in the Big South, and they've been really successful, like Adrian said, right? They've been to the playoffs, I think, 4 times. So they definitely have the skins on the wall, right? They've built a strong culture in that program. They've had the same head coach for all 10 seasons that they've been a program. So definitely they're on the right path for sure. They're still early in that transition period. This roster right now looks very similar to what UTSA looked like in 2012, 2013 when they made the jump up to FBS, right? They have some positions where they're going to be competitive in Conference USA from day one. And they have some too where it's like, man, these guys are not FBS talent, right? You got to find a way to scheme around that. We've seen it firsthand, right? All those days of having the 5'7" cornerbacks, of having the receivers that were, $165 soaking wet, the 6'1" offensive tackles. Like as UTSA fans, like if you've been around for a while, you've lived that life, right? You know exactly what they're dealing with there at Kennesaw State, but you also know that you can have those limitations and you could go on the road and beat the preseason favorite to win the division, right? And that's the beautiful thing about football. In any given Saturday, and scheme can beat talent when there's the right motivation and the right passion behind it, right? So while I'm very bearish on Kennesaw State's talent, you do have to respect that and not come in complacent or conceited, even though UTSA is going to have a massive, athleticism advantage, experience advantage, at almost every position matchup, right? Because this is a program that knows how to win. They didn't do a lot of it last year, but they redshirted almost everybody last year. So, you got to be careful of these kind of games.
You certainly do. And look, the culture there is clearly working. These guys have won Big South Conference 3 times in their years in it. Aside from 2023 and 2022, Kennesaw State never had a losing season throughout their entire first 7 seasons of football. And all 9 years that they've been playing competitive football, they've had the same head coach, Jared, Brian Bohannon. And I think that's extremely impressive. So when we talk about, culture and winning culture and that being a big part of a football program's success, you've had the same guy at the helm from the very get-go. And he's been leading you guys forward, taking these big steps, winning your conference, and now getting into D1 CUSA football. It's impressive.
Yeah. And to start transitioning and talk a little bit more about Kennesaw State on the field, building off the head coach discussion, right? So Coach Bohannon, he's I cannot remember the name of the Georgia Tech head coach that was there forever. Was it? Oh man, the triple option guy at Georgia Tech. Why is that name escaping me? Paul Johnson, disciple, right? Built his whole career following him around. So he's been at all those triple option schools, right? He's been at Georgia Southern. He's been at Navy. He's been at Georgia Tech. He brought that triple option with the flexbone. Is it flexbone or wishbone? 2 minutes. I think they were in the flexbone. Yeah, flexbone. But then, 2 years ago, NCAA changed the rule to disallow cut blocks outside the tackle box, right? So we saw like Army struggle with that, right? Of like, how can you still run this offense without being able to cut block? So Kennesaw State kind of went back to the drawing board, right? They tossed out their whole flexbone offense. And last year they started to transition to, I guess, more of a modern spread offense, right? So they're going to line up in pistol a lot. It's definitely a spread look. And they're still going to have a lot of those same option kind of principles to their offense. I see a lot that reminds me of like those Oregon teams that were really good under Chip Kelly, right? They're running a lot of those triple option concepts, but they're doing it from a spread. So it doesn't look like your service academy type of triple option. So very unique, I would say, and definitely going to get some different looks that you're not going to see in most weeks. But it's been a tough transition for Kennesaw State for sure. Their roster is not built for the offense that they're running. And even with another offseason, I still don't think they have the personnel that they really want to have to execute this new spread offense. So it's been a struggle for them for sure.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And, you talk about they have a lot of players that they redshirted last year. And so you're going to have a lot of guys that haven't had too much experience coming up through the ranks this year, and it's their first year in D1. So there's going to be a lot of baptism by fire that occurs on Kennesaw State's roster. And then you've got some big changes happening at the major skill positions too.
Yeah, and also the coaching positions too. They lost both of their coordinators. I think the offensive coordinator was more of a firing, right? Because they had to change their whole offense, right? Defensive coordinator, I think, went to Troy. That defensive coordinator was good. Their defense is salty. We'll get more into them. But they did internal promotions for both of those. So their linebackers coach, they pulled up to defensive coordinator. I doubt you're going to see much of a change there. I'm sure he's going to keep the same system. All the same players are back, right? So that defense should continue to be good. The offense, though, they're doing a co-OC situation with their former offensive line coach and the former quarterbacks coach. And their former quarterbacks coach, who's now the co-OC, is the youngest offensive coordinator in the country now. He is also essentially their Eric Souza, right? He's the guy who put Kennesaw State on the map. He was like their first big quarterback, took them to the playoffs. So he's an absolute legend. And just imagine if Eric Souza was the OC for UTSA. That's essentially what they've got going on there at Kennesaw State. So I'm really fascinated to see how he does. I'm rooting for him, right? Just from a story perspective, that would be so cool to be the alum and to be super young and, get your shot and pull it off. But I'm also pretty skeptical, right? His resume would not get him hired as an OC at any other country in America. And anytime I see that, it makes me pause a little bit. So we'll see how he does.
Sure. Yeah. Chandler Burks. We'll see how he does. Like that. And
let's talk about the defense, man. I like their defense, dude. They're nice, man. I was impressed watching film, and I think the offense did them no favors. But if that offense was mediocre last year, they've been a really good team, even with all the redshirting. They're bringing back 9 starters on defense, and that defensive line, they pop out at me, and that's a really good defensive line. I think their defensive line is the only position unit where they're really FBS ready.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you say FBS ready, and they've got some of that size on there too. Do you think they need to excel at the CSA level?
Like, look at the depth chart. They still have a defensive end that's 6'2", 245. Right? That's
okay.
Yeah, underwhelming, right? They've got like a 6'2", 275 nose tackle. Underwhelming, right? Not all the way
Not
there.
Beefy enough. Yeah.
No. So I wouldn't say the depth is there, but they've got some really, really good players. Like there's a guy, he goes by Puda Walker, number 99, nose tackle. He's a game changer, really good player. Adam Watkins is listed as a backup on the depth chart. But that was a guy, like when I watched their games last year, I kept writing his number down as a guy who was getting in the backfield making plays. And then there was a guy, Tyler Scott, that I liked a lot, but I don't see him on the depth chart. So I don't know if he left the program or if he's injured or what. But, they're a really good group, right? They can go between an odd man front and an even man front. So, they kind of remind me a lot of like UTSA's defensive line in that sense, that they can kind of move around on you. And they have the players to be able to do that. So, a lot of good players. The Adam Watkins guy is first team all conference. So while they are a little bit undersized, they're really active. They're disruptive. And I think they'll make some plays against UTSA.
Yeah. And I think Kennesaw State has the advantage of where they are, a lot like San Antonio does, right? I mean, there's a lot of talent there in Georgia when it comes to the football rankings. And there's probably a lot of guys that get overlooked or – maybe some schools wouldn't take on their first pass that Kennesaw State can. And when you look at the roster and you see all that, and then they've got a lot of guys from Florida too. There's another hotbed they're right next door to.
They could make an absolute killing just getting those bounce back Division I transfers in the Atlanta area, right? Like all of those guys who were like the last minute pickup for Duke, right? Or the last minute pickup for Syracuse, right? They go out there, they don't see a lot of playing time, maybe a little bit of special teams, not really seeing the field. They miss home, right? They come down and they can be an absolute stud at Kennesaw State, right? We've seen that here at UTSA, right? Guys that just want to be closer to home or, they weren't getting the snaps. Like those guys were absolutely paramount to UTSA becoming the program that they are today, right? And it only takes a handful, right? You get like 5 guys that can be real difference makers to transfer home at the same time. You can go out and, compete to win Conference USA like any year, right? So I really like that for them. But they bring back a lot of talent too. I mean, they have some guys that transferred in that I think are going to be solid for them. But I think if you look at some of the guys that redshirted that are come back this year, they're going to be all right, especially on defense. They have a
So
linebacker. Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say defensive backs. You say you like the defensive line a lot. But what about the rest of their defense? I understand they've lost 2 safeties from last season too.
Yeah, they lost 2 of their safeties. I do know that Sidney Porter, he's like the hybrid linebacker safety for them.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a really big player. But I think that defensive backfield, they're still going to be looking for, some answers there, right? I think there's some question marks. They did lose a lot of production. Their linebackers should be rock solid, though. They have Donelius Johnson, who's preseason Conference USA Defensive Newcomer of the Year. And there was a transfer from Jacksonville State that played for them last year, Barron Hobson. He's actually one of the guys I redshirted, but he's another one of those guys. So he definitely has FBS athleticism. He was really shifty, getting around blocks and stuff like that. So I was like seeing him on film, and I was like jotting his name down in my notes. And then I like went and looked at his like total number of tackles and TFLs, and there's like practically nothing. And then I found out it's because he was intentionally redshirted for this season. So keep it on him. He's on the 2 deep for him. Oh, he's actually starting for them, I should say. Starting in the Michael linebacker.
Wow. Bohannon really playing the long game with those red shirts last year.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Sam Houston State did that in 2022. And then they moved up to FBS last year. They played a Conference USA. Right. But it didn't really work out for them. I mean, they were competitive, but they didn't win, right? So on paper, it's like obviously the right call to redshirt these guys, get them that extra year experience, especially if you're not playing for anything. Because like they're disqualified from the FCS playoffs as soon as they announce that they're moving up. But it makes me wonder about like the chemistry aspect of it, because like when guys are shuffling and they're only playing 4 games, and if you're not playing next to the same man every week, I do wonder how much that hurts. The anticipation of knowing what the guy next to you is going to do. That kind of nonverbal communication, right? When you're not able to build snap repetitions with the same dudes over and over.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting approach to take, right? But like you say, you don't have anything to play for, so why not chalk it up to a throwaway season? Let your guys get minimal game experience, keep their red shirt. You can do that in 4 games now. So it's still a pretty decent chunk of playing time to spread out amongst guys.
Yeah. Man, speaking of, I don't know if you saw this today. They have a new rule for FBS that postseason play does not count for your 4-game counter. So theoretically, you could play in 7 games and still redshirt, right? If you play in conference championship,
bowl,
and then what? I guess there's 3 rounds of playoffs now, right? So like if you're a freshman on Georgia and you win the national championship, you could play in 7 games and still keep your red shirt. The rich get richer, man. I feel amazing. Like if you're on the who's the guy who does like the bottom 25? I feel like if you're on that, you should get an extra year. They should have an opposite ruling for that to balance on the skills, but
counter it. Yeah. So, Coach Brian Bohannon, you talk about you like them on the defensive line, but Bohannon says they're not FBS ready at the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball.
Yeah, and
which is a pretty crazy thing for a head coach to come out and say.
Yeah, but I think he's right, right? Like there are good players on the defensive line.
Do you just put it in black and white like that? I mean, your players see that quote. They hear that quote. I mean, is that the right thing to just say, like going into your first season in D1?
I think so, man. I mean, these guys were not good last year, right? They struggled against like FCS teams that didn't even go to the playoffs, right? They've never beaten an FBS team in their program history. I think they're like 0-10 or something like that against FBS programs. So like these kids aren't stupid, right? They know. So yeah, and I mean, I think they've gone and played against those schools, right? Like they've played Georgia Southern, like they know what it's like, right? So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's not them saying that they don't like the guys that they have. They just don't have enough of them, right? I think is the thing. You gotta keep in mind when you're doing that transition from FCS to FBS, you literally don't have enough players, right? Like you get a certain number of scholarships at FCS level versus FBS level, so it's gotten easier to like quickly ramp up and fill those slots, but you literally do not have the depth when you're making that transition. So when I read that quote, I didn't see it as him talking down on the guys that are already there, but just acknowledging the fact that like that is the biggest difference between the FCS and the FBS, right? Like Kennesaw State had an awesome part of their media guide. Let me scroll up and find it real quick. They have like a tell the tape of like the size difference between Kennesaw State's offensive line and UTSA's offensive line.
I saw that. Yeah,
let me
it's
tap dance a
pretty
little bit
beefy.
here. Okay, here we go. Kennesaw State's offensive line averages 6'3", 291. UTSA's offensive line 6'5", 320. And that's an average, right? That's a massive difference.
Jeez. That's an enormous difference, man.
Yeah.
You're talking about 30 pounds. You're talking about 30-pound average difference on the offensive line.
Yeah, they have a right guard their starting right guard is 6'3", 300 pounds. Center 6'3", 275. This guy's going to be in deep trouble trying to block Brandon Brown.
The discrepancy on the defensive line isn't quite as large.
Mm-mm.
They're averaging 276, whereas UTSA averages 290. But I guess it's the defensive line versus the offensive line that really matters, right?
Right. So exactly.
You got defensive lineman at 276 going against UTSA's offensive line at 320. Should be able to push those guys around pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. And to talk a little bit about the offense, offensive line definitely a problem, right? I was really getting flashbacks watching some of their games from last season. It just reminded me of like those Coker years where it's like, why are the offensive linemen on the ground all the time? Like obviously they're doing cut blocks in the option offense, but sometimes when they're not, like just pass blocking, they end up on the ground, right? And like that's something that used to happen at UTSA all the time. They had less athletic offensive linemen that couldn't move their feet quick enough, and they would just get overpowered, right, by stronger, more athletic defensive linemen. And you're not doing anyone any good if you're laying on the ground, right? A cut block's different, but that was not always the case, right? So a lot of concern there. They got a transfer, Jacob Kettles, in, I think from Montana State, I believe it was. That guy played a pretty good amount at Montana State, but it looked like he did lose his starting job there. He's going to start for Kennesaw State, right? So I think that should go to show like how desperate they are for true FBS talent on the offensive line, where a guy that lost his starting job at another I could say at another FCS program is going to come in and start day one for them. You compare it to UTSA, they got like 4 or 5 Power 5 transfers that started games, right, and have transferred in. So it's just a very different level of athlete on those lines.
Yeah.
They have some playmakers on the offense as well, though. Their running back is probably the one that you're going to see the most of this week, Michael Benefield. He's focal point of their offense, running back that started as a walk-on for them. Really good, shifty player, right? He's just, as soon as someone on the defense makes a mistake, wrong assignment, he's got the speed to make you pay for it, right? And turn one mistake into 20 yards. So he'll be a one to look out for. And with their move away from flexible offense, obviously there's not as many snaps to go around for running backs anymore. So they took one of their other top running backs, Gabriel Bernard, and moved him from running back to receiver. He's a guy that runs a 4.40. So I know Kennesaw State's really high on him. Definitely a guy to watch out for in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I find that super interesting to a guy that had a lot of output for you at running back get moved over to wide receiver. But yeah, you have a different look offense and you've got to use that speed where you can. And maybe their wide receivers a little bit thinner. So you've got to move what you can. They also lost their starting quarterback, Jared. He was no one to write home about in Davis Bryson, but he was their starting quarterback.
Man, I don't say this to be mean, and I listened to Kennesaw State podcast before recording, made me feel better about what I'm going to say. They probably have the worst quarterback room in America. It's really, really bleak. So yeah, their starter last year was bad. He's gone. Davis Bryson played 4 games for them, and he kind of rotated in with their quarterback last year, who's a starter, and he really struggled as well. He's very fast, right? He can run that offense really well. But in situations where he has to throw the ball in traffic, you're not going to feel confident, right? It does not have a very refined delivery, right? A lot of questionable throws. So, if UTSA keeps them behind schedule, right, and prevents Davis Bryson from scrambling, they're going to have a really productive day, right? But he does have that speed and the quickness. He's shifty, right? So if he scrambles and there's no spy on him, or Like we mentioned before, like Kendrick Blackshire is really slow, right, at linebacker, right? So if he's out there, he's in coverage, a guy like Davis Bryson's going to be able to run right around him. But, getting a sophomore quarterback in the Alamo Dome, first FBS start, it's going to be a tough assignment for Davis Bryson for sure. Now, they got a Louisville transfer that I think is a lot better, right? They got this kid, Caleb Johnson, and didn't play a whole lot at Louisville, but he was at Blinn last season. He looked pretty good at Blinn.
Right.
Definitely a guy that I think is going to be an upgrade from Davis Bryson, but the Louisville transfer came in late, right? I think he wasn't there for the spring, so he doesn't know the offense yet. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that he will definitely play against UTSA. A lot more talented. He's a better passer than Davis Bryson, but not a great one for sure. But he can make your standard college football throws, right?
Yeah, it's probably the best passer that they have in that quarterback room, right? So you got to play with.
He's really good at running the zone read. So definitely a guy that you're and for say for Bryson too, like you're going to want to drop coverage against him. Like probably don't need to bring a whole lot of pressure with blitzes and stuff, but just force them to throw into tight zones, and you'll probably come out ahead.
It's going to be rough in their backfield.
Yeah,
it's going to be a rough day in the Kennesaw State backfield. We just call it what it is.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just going to be for UTSA. The key is just going to be avoiding those broken plays, right? If you play good assignment football, you're going to win pretty easily, right? You shouldn't be sweating this one a lot, but if you're not lined up correctly, if you're looking ahead to the big game against Texas State next week, this team is going to be disciplined and well coached enough and have enough speed to make you pay for it.
Is there any targets at wide receiver besides Gabriel Benyard, the 4.4 40 type of guy?
Yeah.
Anyone else for Caleb Johnson to pass the ball to?
Yeah. So there's a tight end that kind of merged for them a little bit last year called Carson Kent. I think he was a freshman last year. He's like kind of like that Houston Thomas, Patrick Overmeyer kind of build, right? Like, 6'4", 230 guy who can stretch a field, like pretty good athleticism, pretty good speed. Sounds like they're going to make him a focal point of the offense this year. They're going to use their tight ends a lot from what, Coach Bohannon has shared in their interview. So, but definitely keep an eye on him. He would be number 86. But it's kind of interesting because he's 6'4", 240. And the other tight end with him is 5'11", 250. And I was like, how the hell did they end up with a 5'11", 250 tight end? And then it dawned on me, they used to be a flex bone team. So this guy was their fullback, and they moved him to tight end.
Wow.
So just a great example of how they're struggling with this transition to a new offense while having the personnel for a flex bone offense.
Right. And to try to implement the new offense while you're going into Division I football for the first time.
It's tough, man. Difficult. It's really tough. And that's the thing, too, with their redshirting strategy. Those guys didn't get a chance to learn the offense, really. Because most of them only played for 4 games. So they just don't get the reps that they needed.
Yeah, and if you ask me about that, moving up to D1, I feel like you got to get your young guys as many snaps as they can, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I tend to agree too. And I think like some of those older guys, like they probably don't have the athleticism to really be super competitive at the FBS level. Like we saw that when UTSA moved up, like some of those 5'11" linebackers, like they were good when we were playing McNeese State, but you get them out there against Louisiana Tech, and it's a whole different story.
Yeah, definitely so.
One last guy I'll call out, one of their big transfers, Virginia Tech transfer Christian Moss, played limited snaps there, but he's a guy that I've seen in their practice videos that can go up and get the ball. He's pretty fast, 6'3", 190, right? So starting to look like an FBS program, right? When you've got Power 5 guys that have some speed and have that kind of size, right? So he's listed as backup for them, but I'm sure he's going to get plenty of snaps. We'll see how much they throw the ball in general, right? Because Bryson Davis played in 4 games, only threw like 10 passes last year.
Yeah, he threw 11 passes on the season. Bryson Davis, which is or Davis Bryson. Sorry. But 206 rushing yards. Yeah, 206 rushing yards. But yeah, only went 2 for 11 in his 4 games being the quarterback there. So yeah, I would expect Caleb Johnson to definitely be the guy. But you have a Virginia Tech transfer, and this guy wasn't just a bench rider at Virginia Tech. I mean, he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, played in 6 games at Virginia Tech. And pretty impressive stuff. 6 receptions, 71 yards.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think if there's any talent there, Christian Moss is the one that brings it. I'm shocked he's not a starter on their depth chart, but he's got to be the most talented wide receiver that they have right now.
Yeah, I think so. I know the coach's son, Blake Bohannon, is going to play receiver. He was a quarterback for them, right? So I don't really know what his experience is as a receiver. Historically, he caught some passes last year, but it's really thin for them for sure.
He started all 9 games at wide receiver last season for Kennesaw State.
Cool.
Didn't have too many catches, but 150 receiving yards, had a touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, got some talent there. Coach's son playing for you, though. You never know what to expect from that.
There's another Bohannon as well. I don't think he's on the depth chart, but I think he also has a son that's like a reserve quarterback that just joined the team too.
Really?
Yeah. Got some Deion Sanders situation going on. All right, Angel. Well, I guess it's that time. First score prediction of the year.
Look, it's going to be a routing by UTSA. I know we're trying to fill some guys out and figure some guys out, but Kennesaw State, first game in the big leagues, UTSA has got to put them in their place. I think they'll have much more success later in the season whenever they go up against UT El Paso or Primos down the street, and they go up against UTEP.
That's going to be a fascinating game. Like, 2 completely different styles of football, because UTEP has Scotty Walden there. They're all like, go, snap it every 12 seconds. So that'll be an interesting one to watch, I think.
It'll be an interesting one to watch, that's for sure. But yeah, they do see UTEP. They do see Sam Houston. So they're going to be in Texas a lot, or they've got a lot of Texas schools on their schedule, I guess I should say. So yeah, I mean, best of luck to Kennesaw State, but it's not going to be week 1. UTSA is going to absolutely trounce these guys. I think for what we're packing at defense through the 2 deep, it would be a absolute shame for Kennesaw State to get into the end zone against the Roadrunners. And that should be the goal for this UTSA defense, for this triangle of toughness, to completely shut these guys down. If they get on the board by way of a field goal or 2, that's fine, but they should not see the end zone all day long. We're going to be rotating a lot of guys on offense. I think Owen McGowan's going to go out there and put some points on the board, and then you're going to see a lot of Eddie Lee Marburger come out in the second half. Hell, he should come out to start the third quarter, if not the second drive, the second series of the third quarter. So I think UTSA wins this one handily, going 37-6 Roadrunners, and that's by way of 2 field goals, not a touchdown, and a missed PAT.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
37-6 Roadrunners.
I'm going to be a little bit more conservative in my guess, and I think that's primarily because we're going to have to see the quarterbacks and receivers start to gel together in a game setting a little bit. So I think we'll see some interceptions. I think we'll see some broken plays on defense, just preseason jitters. I think it's going to be ones. It's going to be a tight first quarter, and then UTSA will open it up. So I'm going to say that Kennesaw State actually covers. UTSA wins at 34-14.
Wow. Crazy. I don't know. I think the interceptions is I'd be pretty concerned if there were a couple of interceptions in this game, Jared.
Owen's touchdown to interception ratio is 5-4.
Yeah, he likes to sling them. I expect for that to tighten up. And I wouldn't mind seeing that ratio against an AAC opponent, but
I'm just saying,
not against
man,
Kennesaw State.
You got to work out the kinks in week 1. Like, if my prediction plays out, don't get too concerned, right? It's the first week of the season, man. It's going to be a little sloppy. It's all good. And I have a lot of respect for that Kennesaw defense. I think they're going to do some things. They're not going to make it easy.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about predictions for Alamo Dome crowd? Are the
good one.
UTSA Roadrunner faithful coming out for a not very exciting opponent in week 1, despite it being a season opener at home?
Yeah. I had checked the ticket map on Ticketmaster last week, and I was pretty concerned because it did not look very good. But the tickets have been flying. So I'm going to say a really strong student section showing, a mostly full student section in the lower bowl gets UTSA to 26,500.
26.5.
Yeah.
Wow. I would gladly accept anything over 25. I am expecting a number closer to 20,000, 22,000, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. I would be very impressed if we get over 25. I would be very pleased, very happy with that. I can't see it happening.
Yeah, it would be a great sign to pull that kind of crowd against Kennesaw State, right? Because it's not a school that many people in San Antonio have heard of.
No, not at all. And I think, this is the key when it comes down to UTSA attendance is, and I think that we've seen this over the years, it doesn't really matter the stakes that are on the table for the Roadrunners. If the opponent's not very juicy, people just really aren't coming out to it. Is this something, Jared, do you prefer the body bag game on the schedule? Would you rather have a lower division or a lower conference opponent of maybe more consequence? What do you think about the out of conference scheduling, the body bag game? I think we know that it's important for a roster to have, especially a new roster, to go and get those jitters out that you were talking about, go and get a good big win to start off the season. I'd much rather it be flipped. I hate seeing this week one, and I guess it doesn't really matter if it's Kennesaw State or Houston Christian because no one's really coming out to the Alamo Dome for HCU either. I don't know.
Don't disrespect my
You got two body bag games in the out of conference schedule, Jared. I mean, what is your overall temperature on that?
Dude, I love it, man. That's big boy football, man. You can buy 2 wins. That's Liberty business right there, baby. I'm all for it, man. Unfortunately, the committee has shown that they evidently don't care about strength of schedule, right? So if you can get 2 super likely wins and you can avoid injury, I think it's great. At this point, I would rather schedule for a playoff run than schedule to get an extra 3,000 people in the dome.
Good point.
I'm all for it. I'd rather be playing UTEP on a personal level, but this strategy is spot on. And you got to keep in mind, too, UTSA had to schedule this Kennesaw State game because of a cancellation from someone.
Yeah, that's
LSU,
true.
LSU canceled, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, if you can get a UTEP, if you can get a Sam Houston in there.
Sure.
I think that gets people a little bit more excited. An SFA, maybe create a little bit more of a narrative. It's a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, I don't think the actual turnout would be much higher for those teams, though, to be fair.
No, it would not.
I think the excitement will be higher, but yeah, on a financial level, I don't think it would move the needle that much.
Average attendance is the same, but I think it's more fun for the diehards to get excited about, for sure.
Yeah, and I do think that's how it is most years for UTSA, right?
Definitely so. Yeah, but no, there's definitely a world that exists where UTSA doesn't get 25,000 people in the Alamo Dome until mid-October. But it remains to be seen. I hope your attendance prediction is correct. I hope my score prediction is correct. Birds up is week 1 of UTSA football, and we will be at the Alamo Dome, baby.
Yeah. Adrian, you want to give our big money donors some shout outs before we head on over to record the bonus episode?
Tremendous shout out to our big money donors. That is going to be Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta, and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdall, host of Around the Bird Bath, Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Summer McDaniels, UTSA King Bowser, and Home Field Apparel, where you can go get retro UTSA gear and you can save 15% on your first order with the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field.
All right, folks. Well, it's been a pleasure. It's great to dive into one of these. Man, people never knew they were going to learn so much about the Kennesaw State football roster in their life, right? And that's what we're here for at Alamo Audible. So if you guys enjoy it, hope you guys check out the bonus episode this week. And we'll see you back next week for the Big Texas State preview.